Hey everyone, welcome to our next edition in my Swatch-A-THON series. Today we're going to be doing my cream blushes. I was going to do all of my blushes and then I realized it was such a large amount that I'm going to have to divide them into categories. So today we're doing cream blushes. I have them all in this little basket here. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. So I think I'm gonna pull out all of the cream or stick blushes here and we'll start there. Let's start with these Persona Cosmetics blush sticks. These are one of my favorite blushes. They did recently restock them, so they have all of the shades back in stock. This first shade is their most neutral shade, I would say, which is the shade Teddy. This is definitely like a warm, neutral type of blush. These are super creamy and pigmented, by the way. I feel like this shade sticker definitely doesn't really match the shade in the tube. This is very warm. It's almost like a bronzer to me. I think I've actually used this as a bronzer before, but if you have warm neutral undertones and you like very neutral warm blushes, I think you would really like this shade. Next we have my personal favorite, which is the Bubble blush from them. I absolutely love this shade. It is so unique. It is very bright, but once you blend it in, it is just gorgeous. If you have fair, cool skin, this one's gonna be your best friend. I love this. If you have a similar skin tone to me and you might be a little bit scared at how bright this is, do not be scared. It's absolutely gorgeous. Again, these formulas are smooth and dewy, but they're not very oily feeling. This next shade we have here is Jam, which is another very beautiful purple shade. If you have more of a medium deep skin tone, this one's gonna be beautiful on you. It's sort of like a slightly more subdued, darker version of Bubble, but it does still have a nice amount of brightness to it. I do find this one sort of the least evenly pigmented out of all of them, but once it's blended in, it is basically melts into your skin. Super beautiful. Very jammy, as the name suggests. And then the last shade of these is one called Kiss, which is their bright shade. This would be another one. This is actually a pretty universally flattering shade because if you have fairer skin, you can sheer it out. It's a very classic red blush, kind of like a vintage color. This on medium to deep skin is one of those shades that's going to just really pop and be gorgeous if you need something that's more pigmented. Also a great color for the lips. You could totally use these on the lips if you wanted to. My personal favorite is definitely Bubble, but as you can see, they do have quite the range of shades. Next, let's do this Say blush that I have. This is the Duve blush in Peachy. When I bought this, I wasn't really into my cool toned blush era yet, so I actually don't reach for this a ton. The doe foot picks up like quite a lot of product, which can be a little excessive. But yeah, the reason I don't reach for this is not necessarily the formula. It's so smooth and dewy. It is a very nice light peach. It's just not my favorite undertone, but if you have fair skin and you like a very light peachy shade, this one is really pretty. Sort of similar undertone to this, but it's definitely lighter, has a little bit more of a pink undertone. Before we move on to the next blushes, I do have a short word from our sponsor of today's video. Before we move on, I wanted to give you an update on my Function of Beauty hair care routine. I did a review and sort of a first impressions of my hair care formula that I was able to get personalized for me. If you haven't heard of Function of Beauty, you take like their hair quiz online and then you're able to customize the formula and adjust the level of fragrance and also choose if it's silicone free or not, which are my favorite aspects of it. I think these formulas have been so great. I do actually tell a difference in terms of like the levels of moisturizing and sort of smoothing properties versus other formulas that I've tried because of the hair goals that I did pick. So in my hair mask, I noticed that it's very deeply moisturizing. I end up using a lot less of it than my other hair mask, which is great, but it also doesn't weigh my hair down because that was something that I filled out, is that I do have like more normal to fine hair and it's straight, so it can lose volume very easily. I really only need to use that once a week because it's so deeply moisturizing. And then I will usually go in with my purple conditioner, which is something I've been loving even more that I use it. It has that perfect level of a violet pigment. I've tried a lot of purple shampoos. Sometimes they have too much purple in them and it actually darkens my hair, but I found that this formula was like light enough in the purple pigments where it toned out my brassiness without really changing my hair color to be purple, because I do have some very light pieces that can turn purple very easily. And I found that that formula did not do that at all, and both the regular conditioner and my deep conditioner, like I mentioned, were just great at not weighing my hair down and making it very manageable and easy to brush out. That's one of like my hair woes, is my hair just gets tangled so easily. Like it's probably tangled right now. It just like catches on itself. So I like something to sort of like coat my hair and moisturize it, so when I do style it, it's just so much more manageable. And I do find that the formulas have been making more of a difference than the previous hair care routine that I had. So if you did want to take the Function of Beauty hair quiz for yourself, I will have it linked below. I definitely recommend it if you feel like you just can't find that perfect hair formula for you at the store. Getting back into it is my Westman Atelier blush in Choquette. It's not like spelled like coquette. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce that. This packaging is really beautiful. This is the only blush shade that I own from them. This is one I do really enjoy. These are a bit more sheer, as you can tell from like the first swipe. You could totally build it up. I absolutely love this pink shade. So you can tell compared to all these like very cool tone shades, peachy, and this is like a very great neutral pink if you want a shade that's kind of just gonna like work with every look. And I do really love this formula because, as you can tell, it's not as shiny as all of these, so it does last a little bit longer on my skin. All of these I do find last pretty well. The Say one's probably the dewiest out of them all. This one still gives you that glow, but I would say has like the most lasting power and just makes your cheeks look super juicy and pretty. Next we have this Han blush stick in Rose Dust. I believe they've updated this packaging, but I actually really love this blush stick shade. She's a little bit dry. I haven't used this in quite some time, but I love this like muted dusty mauve. This is another formula that's not quite as dewy. It looks like a similar finish to the Westman Atelier, but has that muted dusty mauve. Definitely a cool toned, very pretty on fair cool skin, or if you just really like cool toned blushes. Not my favorite formula, but I do really enjoy the shade. Next, I want to swatch a pretty new to me blush. This is from P. Louise. This is the Cheek of It Flirty Flush of Color Liquid Blush. This is in Ballet Slipper. You may have seen this on social media. It is quite popular. Has this basically giant doe-foot applicator to it. And you just squeeze a little bit out and spread it on. This, I think, is actually a really pretty, more warm shade. I would say one of my favorite warm shades because it's just like so pastel. I found those very flattering on my skin tone. It looks kind of similar to these. It's almost if you like mix these two together, you would get this Ballet Slipper shade. They do have some more shades that are sort of like pink instead of peach. Definitely interested in checking them out because I actually really love this formula. It's great under foundation or under powder. I actually do like the sponge applicator. It applies it nice and even, smooth, even pigment, and these are very long lasting. They're not super dewy. Definitely not as dewy as these Persona blushes that we swatched. Sticking with more peachy shades, I have this Flower Beauty Blush Balm. I got this one in the shade Pinched. I don't know if it's this shade, but I just really wasn't a huge fan of this. I think it was probably just the shade that I picked. Again, it was when I was into more peachy blushes. It's just not a very flattering tone on me. Again, it kind of looks like a bronzer. Like, not in a bad way. If you like peaches, I think you will enjoy this color, but it's just not my favorite. It is a liquid formula, blends in really nice and evenly. I'll definitely have to pick up a different shade so I can like thoroughly test the formula compared to all of my other formulas. I think we have room for one more, so let's swatch this Flower Beauty Spotlight. This is a liquid highlight, but I use it as blush because it's just too dark, so I thought it would be included as a blush in this video. This is one of those, you know, like Charlotte Tilbury dupe type of formulas. which, by the way, if you didn't see on the community tab, e.l.f. just came out with sort of products similar to this where they have a blush, a highlight, and a contour wand. The contour wand, the fair shade, looks amazing. I did get the contour and the highlight to review. The blushes were sold out, but they're also now on Ulta. I will link them if they're still in stock. They're going super fast. But this is the shade Gleam, by the way. If you have medium skin, this would be a beautiful highlight. I don't necessarily love this as a blush. It's just like a little bit too metallic. I wish they made lighter shades that would actually work for more fair skin. But in terms of the formula that I got to use, I think it was nice and it applies evenly. It's nice and pigmented. It does have this little spongy applicator. The shimmer is very like finely milled, as you can tell, so it's not going to be very chunky. But yeah, if you do have this as like a highlight shade that works for you, let me know how you like it as a highlight. Here's our first row of blush swatches. Got pretty peachy by the end here. I think my favorite shades out of these ones, you know I love Bubble, and I would say the Westman Atelier shade is another one of my favorites. It's nice and light. Han Cosmetics shade's really gorgeous as well. Nothing stained too badly yet. Let's go into these Thrive Cosmetics blush sticks. I have 3 shades of them here. Let's start with this shade, which is Mieko. So these, if you've never seen these before, let me move these out of the way. They do have a little brush on the end of them, which I really don't like. It's just like super dense. I don't know, I don't love those types of brushes for applying blush, but if you're on the go, I think it's probably, you know, if it's the only brush you have, it's nice. As you can tell, this one's a really nice, light, like ballet pink. I'm actually wondering if this is supposed to be a highlight. I think it's just one of their multi-sticks, so you can kind of use it however you want. I would definitely wear this as a blush. Very light. It's not super shimmery, but it's definitely a very shimmery blush. Could also work as a pink highlight. These are nice and creamy. I don't really have any beef with the formula. And then we have this shade, which is Isabella. This is kind of your classic coral pink with gold shimmer in it, like a NARS Orgasm inspired shade. Not necessarily my favorite because they are usually on the warmer side, but the goldenness is nice and subtle, which I do like. It's not going to be like super glittery on your face. The NARS Orgasm blush is, I feel like, just naturally pretty glittery. So this is kind of a nicer, slightly more subdued version of that. I think this would be nice on warm, light medium skin. And this last shade we have here is Tessa. This is a really gorgeous, like deep burgundy shade. Very pigmented, super smooth and creamy, as you saw with this shade. This is gorgeous. I would definitely wear this as like a very blended out blush. Again, beautiful on the lips, medium deep skin. I really love this like subdued, it's a pretty like neutral, cool-ish type of tone. So I feel like it could be flattering on a lot of different people. Next, I have 2 of these blush sticks from OG. These are called their Hydrogenic Sculpted Face Sticks. These are very luxurious. Honestly, they're kind of like Westman Atelier dupes. This shade is another one of those like orgasm type inspired shades. These take a little bit of warming up to get applied, but once they're warmed up, they're nice and smooth. This has quite a lot of shimmer. Definitely on the sheer side, like it doesn't have a ton of base to it as compared to this shade, which is like quite neon. Very subdued and natural. Again, a really good one for fair skin or a highlight for more medium skin. But I do think this one is very pretty. If I were to wear like a warmish gold blush, this would probably be the one I would go for. Quite shimmery, but it's fine, so it's not going to be glittery looking. And then this other shade we have here is Rose Quartz, which is more of a medium pink. Their packaging, by the way, it feels very luxurious. It's actually made out of metal. That's why I'm saying it's like the Westman Atelier. Like, I think it's actually a very similar weight to this. So let's go ahead and swatch this one. The shade is really pretty. This is Rose Quartz. It's a medium warm pink, not pulling super warm though. So another one I think that would be flattering on a lot of different people. This one does not have any shimmer in it, so it's just like a satiny cream blush formula. I'm not sure the price difference between these and the Westman Atelier. I believe they're less expensive, but they honestly remind me of the Westman Atelier packaging and also the formula because they have that very similar finish. Next, let's swatch this Jouer Blush and Glow Uplift Cheek and Lip Duo. So this has 2 shades. We'll start with the blush side. I have used this one before and I really like this blush shade. It is a matte, very creamy, subdued neutral pink. So this is again perfect if you are a similar skin tone to mine. You want something neutral, subdued, just doesn't really scream I have blush on, but it's gonna give you a really nice just kiss of color on your cheeks. Actually reminds me of the Westman Atelier shade. Let's swatch this over here just for reference to see if it's similar. Okay, that might basically be a shade dupe. This one's maybe slightly warmer. It definitely has a slightly dewier finish, but they're looking pretty similar to me. And then it has another blush on the other side, so it's dual-ended. This is such a shade that's up my alley. It's a very pretty purpley mauve, still pretty soft, has that same matte but creamy finish. I do find that these wear well. Super pretty. I like how it's 2-in-1, and you could also use these on your lips, so it's like a really great travel product. Next up, I think we have enough room for these Merit blushes. I actually have 2 of the same shades, so I just have 2 here. The first one, oh wait, no. Okay, yeah, they are the same. I got confused. Let's start with this one, which is Raspberry Beret. So this is from Merit Beauty. These are their cheek colors. This one's Raspberry Beret. These are more of the sheer, like, balmy sides of cream blushes. You can definitely tell with the application. Blush mole. It's definitely more sheer and just something you probably would want to work in with your fingers. It's gonna give you more dew. I love this shade though. It looks a lot more pigmented in the little round dome, but once you swatch it, it's a really pretty, like, jammy purple. These aren't something I reach for a ton because I do like something a little bit more matte and long wearing, but if you like more like dewy, natural makeup type of blushes, I think these are a good formula. This next one I have is Terracotta. Just another shade that's like really not for me anymore. It looks more like a bronzer. It's warm, it's peachy. If you have warmer undertones or more of a medium skin, I think this would be more of your thing. Yeah, I definitely like this Raspberry Beret shade better. Here's our second round of swatches. We definitely had some more purpley pink colors, more up my alley that I reach for. And then we got some sheer formula, some pigmented. I would say my favorite out of this bunch would probably have to be these Jouer shades, these 2 here. They're very pigmented and smooth. I'm also really loving the dewiness of this Thrive Cosmetics one. Was that the Thrive one? Let's see. Oh no, this was actually an OG one that was similar to like the Westman Atelier type of sheen. They have a very similar finish. So the OG ones in the Jouer, very pretty, and I really like this Raspberry Beret shade from Merit. Let's move on to this guy, which was sort of peeking in the corner if you saw her. This is the Glossier Cloud Paint. They now sell Glossier at Sephora, by the way. This was a gift from Chessie here on YouTube. I will link her channel. She was super sweet and sent me some Glossier products because I literally had never tried them. So this was just super fun to try out. This is their Cloud Paint, by the way, which is a liquid blush. And I really love this shade. It's such a pretty, fun pink. These are nice and thin, but they do offer smooth pigmentation. I think it has enough pigment that it could work for like more medium skin, or if you have fair skin like me, it does sheer out nicely. Very creamy. They do last a good amount of time as well, and I feel like they perform well over powder. I'm gonna do a little bit more just so we have an even swatch, and then we'll move on, since I did blend it out a little bit. My one thing with these is they can be a little bit messy if you sort of squeeze out too much, but I really like the like paint inspired tubes. They're super cute. Next I have this Pacifica Cheeky Cherry Cheek Stain, lovely sheer color. This is, I tried this probably in a Pacifica video quite a long time ago. It is another squeezy tube blush. Let's see if we can get anything out of this. It might be clogged. I think we got a clog on our hands. I'm trying to unclog this and it's like literally squeezing out the side. Okay, I guess we'll just use that to swatch, but definitely wouldn't recommend that for the packaging. Now that I'm swatching these next to each other, it's really similar to this Glossier formula. It basically applied exactly the same besides the packaging, which was clogged up. I mean, maybe just because I haven't used it in so long, but this is the shade Cherry Baby, by the way. Another one, not my favorite. It's funny, I own so many peachy blushes and they're not my favorite anymore, but I did used to enjoy them. It's not super peachy though. I think it's wearable if you have neutral, warmer undertones. These do have like a scent to them. Like it kind of just smells like Pacifica makeup, if you know what I'm saying. Like slightly like cherries, but not really. Kind of a hard one to describe. Next we have this CoverGirl Clean Fresh Cream Blush in Sweet Innocence. If I remember correctly, I really did enjoy this. I bought this when this line sort of first came out. If you remember that review, thanks for still watching. See, this one was not clogged up. This is so cool because it's like a metallic shade. Like it's not shimmery, it's metallic. Like you can only really tell when it hits the light, and it's this very pretty like coolish type of pink. It is very unique. I think these are kind of underrated at the drugstore. This is the 330 shade Sweet Innocence. Very, very pretty shade, can be sheared out. I just love the undertone and the finish of it. Out of all of these, I don't really own any like metallic blushes that have a finish like this. Moving on to this KVD, this is one of their ModCon liquid blushes in Glolita number 10. I think that's a play on their classic Lolita shade. I do like this packaging for a liquid blush. Comes out nice and easily. So these are really fun because it's like a sheer jammy shade and formula. Because it's a gel blush, you can really shear it out or build up the pigment. So this actually works really nicely over foundations and powders. Very pigmented. I actually basically swatched way too much of it. Super gorgeous formula. Another one that sort of reminds me of Glossier, but it has more of that sheerness. Shade also reminds me of the Persona Jam shade, just a little bit more muted. And these do dry down, but not completely, so they give you the longevity, but also that glow is still there. I really am a fan of this line. I also really love the ModCon contour product. And then I have these two liquids. These are the Danielle Sandler Watercolor Liquid Cheek Colors. I have two shades, starting with this shade, which is Rosé Glow. Definitely gotta make sure you shake these up. These have like a dropper bottle because they are a pure liquid blush. The thinnest blush that we've swatched by far. They do have an oily feel to them. It doesn't feel watery. They're called watercolor. They're probably water-based, but they definitely have some sort of oil in them. You can tell it is very sheer. It gives you this like angelic glow. I definitely think these are one of the most unique blush formulas I have in my collection in terms of liquids, because they really like melt into your skin, but they have that shimmer. It's very undetectable. Wow, I'm still just like amazed by this CoverGirl one. I need to pull it out and use it more. Yeah, very thin, very watercolor-esque. And then the other shade I have of that one is Golden Glow. So this one is more of a bronzy base. This one's more of a bronzy base. I believe I've actually used this as bronzer before. You can tell they're very sheer. If you don't like sheer blushes, avoid these. But if you love a sheer, angelic glow, you like shimmer, I think these are a really unique formula to try out. I definitely prefer this shade. This one's more of a warm bronze. Next we have this Pixie On The Glow blush. These went viral and I think they totally deserved it. They are such a cool on-the-go blush. And they come in this like stick formula. I have more shades of these, but I have no idea where they went. Maybe I didn't keep them, maybe I like gave them away, but this is the shade Floor. I definitely kept this one because it is my favorite like baby pinkish shade. These are really dewy and pretty. They're very easy to apply. I like the stick application because you can sort of do a wider swatch or do it thinner. I don't know, they're just really pretty and I like this drugstore option. They have more of a slightly waxy feel to them, whereas these are very liquidy. This is more of like a wax base. So you're gonna stay a little bit longer on the skin and be a little bit more moisturizing. So I think I have room for this. This is the Jones Road Miracle Balm. They have a bunch of different shades of these, but this one I would classify as a blush because of the shade of it. I think I got maybe a little bit too much. These are a true like blush balm. I really do like this shade. If you have very dry skin or mature skin, I think this was pretty. I love the shade. I love the like slight shimmer finish to it. They do have like a slight scent to them. I think it smells good. Kind of just smells like natural makeup. Jones Road, I just feel like the brand is not really for me. It's just definitely geared for people with more dry skin. This is just too oily on me and it kind of like slips around. But again, if you have dry skin, more mature skin, this might be something that you really like. I do really like this shade. Again, this is something you could use on your eyes and lips as well because it's like a multi-balm. I'm really squeezing in the swatches, but let's swatch this Ilia stick. This is their old packaging. This is the shade Ladybird. I'm not even sure if they still sell this, but let's sort of do this on the side of my arm. A little bit more dry at first. I was never a huge fan of these. Definitely pretty. I like this like muted, warm, neutral shade. I just think with everything we have here, I like something with a little bit more like shine and dimension to it. So these are just like matte to me, but it's still like a pretty good, decent blush formula. As I'm wiping my arm, this Ilia one's really wanting to stay. So I think it's like that waxy base really grabbing on. Let's move on to more of our sort of potted cream blushes. I have the full lineup, I believe, of the Tower 28 blushes. They did just release a new lavender shade, which is literally my favorite shade of blush. And I think that was needed because a lot of these are pretty warm toned, but let's go ahead and swatch these. I'm gonna start with this like most neutral one. Also the first one I got, which was Beach Please. Oh wait, no, that's the name of the blush. I always get that mixed up. It's called Magic Hour. I really love this packaging. It's just so simple but cute. So these have a nice creamy formula. They don't need to be warmed up. They kind of just already have that smoothness to them. So there's Beach Please. I think this is the perfect neutral pink, kind of universally flattering. If you like pinky neutrals, this would be a great starter blush. Next we have this really fun shade which is called Happy Hour. This has some more pigment to it. It's a bit of a brighter pink. These were kind of one of the formulas that made me fall in love with cream blushes. This shade's super pretty. It's kind of bordering on a warmer pink. Neutral, warm, super pigmented. It packs a lot of punch in terms of pigment and color, but could definitely be sheared out for more of like a natural look. Next we have this really pretty plummy color called After Hours. I think the names of these are really cute too. I think this is one of their new-ish shades to the family. I love this plummy color. Actually, when I'm swatching these, you can kind of tell they give you this airbrush look, which I feel like does translate onto the cheeks. Like they just really blend out and melt into the skin. Shade's super pretty. It's not too dark. So if you have fair skin, you could make it work. Again, like a lot of different skin tones, I think would like this. Next, we're sort of getting into the warmer shades. So we have this one, which is called Rush Hour. This was one of their originals. This is kind of your classic peachy, pinkish blush. If you like peaches, this would be the girl for ya. And we have this shade, which is Golden Hour, another part of their classic collection. This is sort of like the slightly deeper older sister to the one we just swatched. So you can tell lots of pigment there. If you have medium warm skin, you like basically straight up orange blushes, this is actually really pretty. I think it's quite unique to have a pretty true orange blush that's still wearable. So I do applaud the uniqueness of this, although it's not my personal favorite. And then we have this gorgeous deeper shade. This is called Power Hour. I would describe this as like a muted brick red burgundy. It has a lot of brown undertones to it. If you have fair skin, actually fair olive skin specifically, these colors are really beautiful. But if you have darker skin and you wanted to build it up, I just think the undertone is really pretty because it doesn't pull too red or too purple. It's just that nice brick muted color. It's sort of like this if you added a little bit more pigment to it. Gorgeous. So those were the Tower 28 blushes. I would love to know your favorites that I swatched. It's a tough one, but I do really like this first shade. It's a classic. I think this one's pretty. This one's also really gorgeous at the top here. I would love to add the lavender one to my collection. If you do own these, let me know what your favorite shade is to wear as well. Since we have some room left, let's do these rose ink blushes that kind of look like toilet seats, but I still think the packaging is really cute. Starting with this more neutral one, this is Heliotrope. These are incredibly creamy and definitely don't need to be warmed up. This is another neutral pink. They are a little bit more on the sort of middle ground of pigment. They're not super pigmented, but they're also not sheer. Very pretty muted color. If you wanted like a starter shade from Rose Ink, I think this one's gorgeous. And then we have this more bright berry shade. This is Azalea. This one's very pretty. This heliotrope shade, by the way, does have shimmer in it, as does this one. I'm not sure if all of the shades do. They're very, very like minimal fine shimmers though. So it doesn't really pull metallic or shimmery. It kind of just helps with the glow. This is a gorgeous like purpley pink red. It's not like super warm either. Very gorgeous compared to this. Like it's more of a pink shade. This one's more of like a bright red raspberry. I feel like that's a really good shade description. I would describe it as a gorgeous raspberry shade. We have our last little grouping here. I want to start with these Ritual des Filles shades. First is one of their Color Nectar pigment balms. These can be used anywhere. This is the shade Bee Sting. This was a really unique line, and this formula of blush is also really unique. It's like somewhere between, it's like a gelish cream, so it's on the more sheer side to give you like that flush of color, and I really love this Bee Sting shade. Kind of your classic pink, more on the neutral cool side. I think it's really flattering, and it just gives you like this glow. It works beautifully over powder. I've worn this in tons of videos, and it just gives you that like juicy, plump cheek look. And I think this like really, it's quite small packaging, but it's really cute and portable. Next is one of their Inner Glow cream pigments. These are also something you can use wherever you want to. This is the shade Lust. I thought it was really unique. These are wax-based, so they're a bit thicker than the other cream blushes that we swatched. But because of that wax base, I do feel like that's what makes them so beautiful over powders, and they do have a really good amount of staying power. This is one of my favorites. I love these like purpley brickish shades that are nice and muted because they're just so wearable, and you could use them for so many different looks. As you can tell, both of these, they're a little bit more on the sheer side. They're very fun to play with. You can build them up or sheer them out, so they're very versatile. Next, let's do these Pacifica fluffy blushes. These are really unique. They're called fluffy blushes, which I kind of thought of like Maybelline whipped formulas at first, but they're not like whipped. I don't know like what's up with that name. It's kind of just a cream in a pot. And these just, they're pretty. They're not my absolute favorite though. They just don't wow me. They're more on the sheer side. They do blend out nicely. This one is the shade Sunset, by the way, which is another peachy pink. And then we have sort of another NARS Orgasm type shade. This one's called Bloom. If you hear the rain, sorry, I guess it is raining. This is Bloom, so it has a pink base to it and some shimmer in it. Yeah, they're not super pigmented, as you can tell. They do have this like more oily finish. It's kind of hard to even get this one to show up. They're just not my favorite. They don't pack a lot of pigment as compared to a lot of the other blushes we've swatched. And then we have this shade, which is Pink Haze. It's more of a purple color. You can kind of tell this one has really cool shimmer in it. These are like a true balmy blush. Just so hard to get pigment out of them. It's like not even worth swatching at this point. Yeah, I just don't really recommend them. If you're looking for pigment, it's not there. Speaking of pigmentation, we have this sort of custom pigmentation undone blush. It's the Lip to Cheek palette in the shade Rosy. So if you've never heard of these, it's 3 different creams, sheer, medium, and then full pigment. So I will go ahead and swatch all 3 of them for you. Obviously they're all gonna look the same, but they have different pigmentation levels. So this is the sheer one. And then in the middle is the medium pigmentation. So we have the light pigmentation, the medium, and then this last one is the full pigment. I don't notice much difference between this one and the medium pigmentation, by the way. Well, you can tell it is a little bit more pigmented. This is kind of a cool idea, but also I feel like you could just like build up a regular blush. I don't know, how do you feel about this? I think the shade is really pretty. It's this like bright, cool berry pink. And then we have this Wander Beauty Double Date Lip in Cheek. This is the shade Honeymoon. So this has a clear balm on one end, and it has a blush on the top. I'm not gonna swatch the clear balm because that's pretty self-explanatory. You could just use that on your lips, or even if your eyes, or even your eyes if you wanted to. But here is that shade. I do really like this pink. One of those neutral, pinky, sort of warmish shades. I never know how to describe these, but We've had a lot that are pretty similar. I do like this, but it's not something that like super stands out to me. It's cool that it has a balm on the bottom. And let's do this LYS blush in Higher Standards. This is a satin matte cream blush in the shade Confident. So this is like a very big pan of cream blush, which I think is cool because you can just really get it in there. Their packaging is super nice. This is actually pretty similar to the shade that we just swatched. Has a bit more of like a warmth to it. It's something I don't gravitate towards again because I just didn't do the best job at picking a shade that I would really get a lot of use out of because it is a little bit more orangey. But I do think this formula is nice. It's a true satin matte, so it goes well over powder and it does wear well because it's not super dewy. And let's do this little Rare Beauty blush. This is the only Rare Beauty blush I own. I'm not a huge fan of these. Like, they are very pigmented, but I just feel like they don't always blend out the nicest. I don't know. If you have tried these, let me know your thoughts. We're gonna do this one on the side here. I do commend them for the amount of pigment. I actually really enjoy this shade. It's like this neutral, cool pink. Like I mentioned, the pigment is beautiful. They have more of an oily finish. I don't find they really perform the best over powder. This is a mini, by the way. I'm not super crazy about like the longevity or application of them. And then we have these Juice Beauty blushes. I really love these formulas. I've been talking about them for years. I think they're pretty underrated. Come in these cute little packaging. This, you can tell, I have really loved. This one's the shade Flush, by the way. These definitely feel like more of a waxy base. What I love so much about these is they have this waxiness, but that's what makes them stay so well. They apply over powder beautifully and they just last all day. This is the shade Flush, which is definitely more on the sheer side. It's like a neutral warm blush, but I find it very wearable. And then this other shade is Orange Blossom, which is more of a peachy pink orange shade. It's a really pretty peach. It kind of leans a little bit more pink versus like this shade, which is bit more orange. I just really love these formulas. I definitely need to check out what other shades they have. These are quite old. Honestly, I should probably throw them out, but I just love the formulas. All right, we also have this Monori blush. This is the shade Orchid. This brand is new to me. I haven't really gotten a chance to try this out. It comes in this pot, a little bit hard to get out. Let's see, I guess we'll swatch it up here. Feels more sheer and balmy for sure. Feels really nice and moisturizing. I love this shade. It is a cool purple. Doesn't pack a ton of pigment though, so it could definitely be very wearable. If you try this brand, let me know what you think about it. They make like a lot of potted cream products. So that was it for our little cream blush swatch-a-thon. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe and give it a like. Giving my video, that was like the worst thumbs up ever. Giving my video a like really helps it get to people who would enjoy this video and helps to support my channel. Of course, make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already so you don't miss my next part in this series. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what kind of category do you want to see next. Liquid eyeshadows, maybe lipsticks. I feel like those are super helpful to be swatched. I also have a lot of liquid eyeshadows, eyeliners, so many options. I think it'd be really fun to do. Yeah, thank you all for watching and I will see you in my next video. Bye.